Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors, episode 51.
Welcome to Life by Design, the podcast for chiropractors. Here's your host, Dr. Jamie Richards.
Welcome to Life by Design, the podcast for chiropractors. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards. Today, I'm excited, guys. I'm excited to give you access to the very first presentation that I did at our most recent LifeCon event. And the reason we're doing that is twofold. Number one, I really want you to get a taste for it. I want you to listen to what we've put together for the profession. It really is, I think it's really spectacular. I think it's innovative. I think it's groundbreaking, and there's nothing like it. And we put together the Chiropractic Sales Playbook, and the whole weekend, the content was so difficult to pull together because it was new. We decided we wanted to push the envelope. We wanted to create something that was unique and different. And it came together wonderfully, and the feedback was incredible. So I'm going to give you access to that today. It'll be a longer episode. It was my whole first presentation. So, enjoy today's episode. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. We're going to, in twofold, we're going to give you access to the full program. We're going to get it up online, get it into modules where you can access it anytime you want. You can see the live videos, you can see the slides, you can be a part of LifeCon really and get the feedback and get to experience what everybody else did. So both the playbook applied to mindset, the plays, which we went through a pile of plays and how to apply them. And then we spent a lot of time on the final portion going through the entire Life by Design standard process. And so you're going to get insight into that as well. And I think that's going to open up a lot of doors for people. So what we're going to do is we're going to make that accessible to our podcast listeners. And you'll be able to grab that instead of the regular $4.97, which is what this is going to be when it gets up online after the end of the month. You can get it for $2.97. So that's our special gift to you guys. We want you to get access. But today, jump in, grab the first stuff for free, take a listen. I know you're going to be excited. I know by the time you finish my first presentation, you're going to be chomping at the bit to get to the rest. So let's make it really easy. Just shoot me a message, Jamie Life by Design, Jamie at lifebydesign.com. Just say I'm in. And if you're in, then I'll send you the details to get logged in and to go through all that other steps. But again, save yourself the trouble. Just I'm in. So if you're on your phone or you're sitting on your computer and you don't have time to register right now, no big deal. Just I'm in, and we'll get everything taken care of from there. So enjoy today's episode of Life by Design for Chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic. So how many people have been, blessed or lucky enough to remember the moment that you met the person that you fell in love with? Actually remember the actual moment. So think about that. I'm grateful that not only do I remember the moment, but we have a picture of the moment. This is the picture of the moment that I met my wife. So I want to tell you this story because I think it's an important one and it gives a lot of context to this weekend. So we were at a seminar with Rochelle, Mike, and we were actually at CalGym. This was in 2012, I believe it was. And we were at the CalGym party. So if anybody's ever been to CalGym, there was this crazy party going on. And if anybody knows me, crazy parties, probably not at the top of my list. So hung out for a little bit, slipped out, had my bow tie on. And I'm walking home. Rochelle, and Mike, I think, had already made their way back to the... We're less of a partier. They're even less of partiers than I am. And of course, my brother was still there, if that gives you any context to the entire story. Story of our life, right? So I'm walking home, and as we're walking back to the hotel, I see these two women standing here, and she had her hands over a light that was coming up out of the ground. And of course, I only saw them from behind. So I saw dark hair, nice figure. And as I'm walking by, so her friend was taking a picture. And they were then, by the time I caught up to them, they were looking at the picture, giggling and laughing, and they had had a few drinks themselves. And I walked by, and I'm not actually as extroverted and as outspoken as you might think when I stand up here in front of a room. I'm actually a total introvert. So unless I'm speaking about something that I'm passionate about or I'm highly engaged in something, I'm happy to sit in the back of the room, to be in the corner, and to do my own thing. So it was definitely out of character for me in that sense. And as I walked by, and of course it might have been a couple drinks that I had as well that gave me a little bit more courage. And as I walked by, I looked in, put my head right in between them. I said, "Hey, picture looks great, girls." And they looked up, and then Dana looked up, and that's when I saw her for the first time. So obviously I was taking a chance that the hair and the figure were going to translate into the front side as well, and luckily it did. And so we proceeded to walk back to the hotel, and I said, "Do you guys mind if I walk back with you?" And we started walking back, and they said, "Yeah, no problem." We're giggling and laughing. "So what's your name?" And she wouldn't actually give me her name. She told me her dad's name, who was also a chiropractor, and that's why she was at CalJam. So I had her dad's name, and we got back to the hotel where we were both staying. We didn't know, "Oh, you're staying at this hotel?" "Yeah, I'm staying here." "Great. Well, do you mind if I give you a ride up to up the elevator?" And so we get in the elevator, and we're heading up. And in her head, as she tells the story, she's thinking, "This guy's not coming to my room." I don't know what he thinks right now, but this is a no. He's not coming to my room. So we're going up the elevator. As we cruise on up, we're having a chat in the elevator. She's very sweet and very kind. If anybody's met Dana. And it's time for me to get off. So I step off the elevator, and the doors close, or they go to close anyway, and I, right out of a movie, boom, stick my arm in. Because something came over me in my mind. I thought, I just can't let this interaction pass. I have to get back on the elevator. There's something that I need to do here. So, boom, arm in, stop. She's like, "Jamie, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, well, it wouldn't be gentlemanly of me unless I took you all the way up, at least to the floor where you're staying." So her commentary is still, "He's still not coming to my room. I'm not sure what he thinks here." So we go all the way up, and we're chatting back and forth. And she's about to get off the elevator. And as the story goes, I said, "Well, thank you so much. This has been the best part of my entire weekend." She's like, "Oh, the seminar wasn't very good." And so just imagine the doors are just about to close. And I said, "It was great." So now she's on the other side of the door, of course, smitten from what she tells me anyway, heads back to the room, and I go back and I start telling Cresho, Rochelle, and Mike about this story. And they probably remember this very vividly. And I'm, pretty excited like I am now. I got goosebumps, and I'm talking. I just met this girl in the elevator, and she was so cute, and she was so sweet and so nice and so kind. And they said, "What's her name?" I said, "I don't know what her name is, but I know what her dad's name is, and he was a chiropractor." So, of course, I proceed to our good friend, the Journal of Google, and I begin to Google around. Of course, I went to Facebook first, which is always the first resource, and I couldn't find her or the practice anywhere. And if you know Dana's parents, you know that they don't have their practice on Facebook, at least not until they met Mike, and Mike now has them on Facebook. But the point is, at that time, no Facebook. So I'm Googling around, and I finally find Cerrone Chiropractic, New Jersey. Okay, great, that's her last name. So I start going into Google, and I'm typing, so I can't find her. Of course, she has some backwards name, McDane or Danes or something for her handle. Finally found her, get on Facebook, and of course, at the time, I'm not sure if this is the case now, but you can do the poke. And so the poke is not good. You don't do the poke. Right? And I didn't know this, and I said to Rochelle, actually, I said, "Rochelle, I'm just going to poke her." She goes, whoa, don't poke her. Why not? Why? I need to poke her. It just sounds wrong. She already told me I wasn't coming to her room, so she said, "Just send her a message." Okay, so what message am I going to send this girl that I just met on the walk home on the elevator for 10 minutes?
You need to buy Rochelle a present. She saved this.
Yes, thank you, Rochelle. It could have went bad right from there. And so I sent her a message, and she has to accept your friend request, I believe, at the time. And so she said yes. And I said, actually, I sent the message, and it went for hours. I woke up the next morning. If you remember, I jumped up out of bed, and I looked nothing. Like, oh, man. Totally deflated. She didn't send a message back to me. She didn't accept my friend request. So it wasn't until we were in the airport. We were having lunch in the airport. She accepted it. She said yes, great. So my message was something along the lines of, what a great interaction. I have no idea, no expectations here. I just wanted to say that doesn't happen very often, and thank you. So it was a very sweet, kind message. And of course, her commentary was, her friend at the time said, "He just wants to see your bikini pics." Right? He just wants to be accepted as your friend so he can go look at all your pictures, which was only partially true. I actually wanted her to accept my friend request so I could have a conversation with her. But I had no idea where it was going to go, but she said yes, and I was very excited. And so time went on, a couple weeks passed, and we started to send messages back and forth. She asked me for a referral. And so I found her a chiropractor in her area. And I didn't put him through a 45-minute grill session, but I did contact my friend Brad Glowacki, who was in the area. I said, Brad, I need somebody. And there was a commentary, or there was a conversation to try and find the right person. So I found her the right person, but she didn't get the message. So thanks to social media, somehow she didn't see the message. And she was thinking, what an a-hole this guy is. I thought we had some kind of connection. And then she sent me a message on Skype. We proceeded to Skype every night for 3 months, for many, many hours. And with 3-hour time difference, there was a lot of late nights. I was going to bed at 3 o'clock, waking up at 6 o'clock for practice to accommodate her schedule. And Horatio and I made a trip. We were just talking about San Diego. Side note, if you ever want to hear the story of our speaking event in San Diego, please ask us on one of the breaks, because it's a great, hilarious story. And so on that trip, Horatio and I actually drove up to Los Angeles and surprised Dana. And it was the first time I'd seen her since the elevator. And of course, we were talking and so on for many, many months. But of course, I knocked on the door, and she's standing there. I said, can I come in? She said, yes, you can come in. So I came in and proceeded to 3 months later, or I guess 2 months later, went to visit again. And then I said, you should come to Canada. She said, okay, I'll come to Canada. And then a week before she was going to come, I said, why don't you just move to Canada? She said, okay, I'll just move to Canada. So she sold her car, she sold all of her things, pretty much, and she came to Canada. And I picked her up at the airport, actually in Shane Biku's car, who was sponsoring the wine and cheese. He had a BMW, and I thought, this can be way better than my 2003 Corolla with the taped up window. So I borrowed Shane's Beamer, and I went to pick her up. And so I picked her up, and I brought her back, and I took her to the property that we currently have our house on now, and it was just an empty property. I had just bought the property. It's on the lake. It's beautiful. And I took her down to the lake, and I proposed. And she said yes on our third date. And, of course, as the story goes, we've been married, we have 2 kids, and all the things that have come from that. And so thinking of this story and what I was going to open up with in terms of giving some context, and you all have this experience every day in your life in many different ways, but that's what this weekend is about. You know, I think about what would have happened if Dana didn't say yes to any one of those examples, right? To any one of those experiences. And that really is the insider scoop. That's the classified information that, you know, I was at the Halton Peel speaking to Matt's group on Wednesday. Thursday was CMCC. And I asked the group of chiropractors, and I knew exactly what people were going to say. Maybe you guys will surprise me. If I were to say, you know, what's the difference? And Matt, you can't chime in here because you know the answer. What's the big difference between someone who is ultra successful, not just in practice, but in life, compared to someone who is struggling, compared to someone who is still, you know, stuck in mediocrity? What are the big differences? What would be some of the examples that you would think off the top of your head without knowing the content for today? Habits could be one, sure. Any? Growth mindset? Self-esteem? Grit. I like grit, John. All the things that you would think. Shauna?
They're good at just getting a next step.
Well, that would be a great one, and that's actually the answer. So, Shauna, that is the answer. Yeah, you can get a hug afterwards, collect outside, okay? So, that's the answer. And we thought about this, and when Mike was commenting earlier about the difficulty in this content, it was extremely difficult to put together. And one of the things when we said, you know, we really want to do this topic, and we did question whether it was going to be something that chiropractors would not just understand in terms of how we marketed it, but, you know, would it be in their mind important enough to them to be here? And you can see, you know, this is a training, and we've really isolated down to this group of, you know, 40 or 45 doctors and team. These are the people who value what we talked about in the marketing of this topic. And so the content was really, really difficult to put together because what most doctors and people think the big differences between success and not is something to do generally with mindset or vision or purpose. And those are important. They're part of the requirements to be successful in life. But at the end of the day, if you want to narrow it down to something that is just one single thing, it's what Shauna said. It's getting people to say yes. That's it. And that was the example in Dana's story, my story. If anywhere along the way she didn't say yes, that was done. And anything that would come after that was done. You can think of the people in your practice where you didn't get them to say yes. It's done. Now, maybe 1% of the time those people show up again, but 99% of the time, if they say no, it's done. And that's how we have to start thinking about this process. We need to figure out how can we take everything from this weekend, everything we're going to train on, and get to the point where we can get better at getting people to say yes. Yes, John, I will come to your workshop. Yes, John, I will bring my kids to see you. Yes, I would love to bring my wife in. Yes, I will come 3 times a week. Yes, I will pay you what you're worth. Yes, 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 yes. The moment somebody says no, it's over. So just think about, not just in your own life, but worldwide. Think about all the people. I was thinking about Reggie Gold. What if Reggie couldn't get people to say yes? Right? Where would we be in chiropractic in that sense? What if Steve Jobs wasn't good at selling? What if he couldn't get people to say yes? How many people have Apple products? Almost every single person in this room. You go to Bill Gates, Martin Luther King. You just go down the list of trying to get people to say yes. Now, I was in preparation for this listening to one of my favorite people, and that's Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. We've coached with Strategic Coach before. They're a great company, great podcast, great information. And I love what he said about selling. Either you believe that everything in life is about selling, or you believe that it's about the tooth fairy. And his example was every single interaction in life is about getting somebody to say yes, 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 or you think that there's some type of mystical force that is making people say yes, or it's making people, it's building people's lives for them, right? Hence the tooth fairy. And in chiropractic, we know this all too well because we've told ourselves that, well, innate will tell me where to practice. Innate will tell this person they need to bring their kids to me. Innate will tell them that they should keep coming for the rest of their life. Or we could just get them to say yes, right? We could just engage them in a process that we've actually thought through, have systems built around, have a mindset built around, and get them to continue to say yes and actually take the responsibility for them. So that's what this weekend is really heavily going to be about. So let's talk about the definition from Dan Sullivan. I think this really, really fits. And break it down into some really important points. Selling is getting someone intellectually engaged in a future result that is good for them and getting them to emotionally commit to take action to achieve that result. So I want you to remember this all weekend. You're going to see this slide over and over again. This won't be the first time. Everything in life is selling. And when I bring that up to chiropractors, there's automatically selling. I shouldn't have to sell chiropractic. Why do I need to sell chiropractic? I'm a doctor. Right? People should just come to me. I shouldn't have to sell chiropractic. So when you start to change your relationship with what the definition to selling is, it changes how you approach this whole situation. So whether you're a doctor, we have a handful of staff here, you are absolutely vital to this process. You have to be involved in the process of getting people to say yes. A big part of your job, and we'll talk about it over and over, is holding people accountable to those yeses. Right? The doctor may establish a strong agreement with somebody, but then they go up to your front desk, and your front desk staff doesn't hold them accountable. I know this all too well in different situations of when I'm coaching with clients, and I'm getting a really strong agreement in the room, and then they go up, and all of a sudden went from 3 times a week for 6 weeks to once a week for 2 weeks. And what happened between there and there? And that's where developing a team is such a valuable and important piece of this entire puzzle. As I said, selling is everywhere. It's something you need to do in every interaction. And think about it for your own self. Again, whether it's a relationship, whether it's, your kids are the best salespeople in the absolute world. And they're constantly selling you on staying up later. They're selling you on the next cookie, right? They're selling you on not getting out of bed. They're selling you on cartoons. They're selling you on everything. And they're doing it in such a way that you don't even know that they're selling you. They're so smooth. And no one's ever taught them. No one's ever trained them. They just have that skill. We could learn a lot from kids. They are relentless in terms of selling and even more relentless in terms of closing. Can I have this cookie, Daddy? Can I have this cookie, Daddy? Daddy, can I have this cookie? Right? They understand the play we'll talk about, which is just the straight ask. Can I have the cookie? Can I have the cookie? Daddy, can I have this cookie? I'll just have this cookie, okay? Right? The assumed yes. Daddy, I'll just have this cookie. I'll just have half the cookie. And then I'll just have, what about a little piece of the cookie? Can I have a gum? 10 pieces of gum? No, how about 5 pieces? They're great at negotiating. Can I have a piece of gum? Yeah, you can have 1 piece. How about 10 pieces? No, how about 1 piece? How about 5 pieces? How about 1 piece? I'll have 2 pieces of gum. This is what happens every day. We're constantly selling. If you had to sell your wife on what movie you're going to watch, oh, Transformers tonight, honey, this is going to be so good. You know, there's a love story blended into this, and you are selling all the time. And so you just have to accept that selling is everywhere. So why not get really, really good at it? Now, what are the key parts of this definition that I think are key and vital? Number one is you start off by getting people intellectually engaged. And I believe Mike's going to talk about some of these things in the psychology of selling, so I won't give away his thunder. But it's not something that it's emotionally driven. It has to be logical, right? There's an intellectual relationship and conversation that starts this off. Number two, and you'll see I've bolded it because it's probably the most important piece of this. It's what helps chiropractors and business owners, entrepreneurs, and people distinguish the difference between manipulating somebody and creating a win-win situation. So when we say selling, it's not as if you're selling them on something that's devastating to them, right? You're not selling them on something that's going to be bad for them. You're selling them on something that's going to be amazing for them, that is going to absolutely impact their life in a very dramatic and extreme way. Why wouldn't we want them to do that? Right? You would think it would be a massive sacrifice to not be really good at doing this. How many people have been through a process where they were getting sold on something because they wanted a product, they wanted a service, and you did it, but the salesperson was terrible? You remember that experience? Think about what that felt like to you. You know, you almost walk in, you're pre-sold, you're thinking, I can't wait to get this car. And they start telling you about things and the features and the benefits, and it's painful. You're thinking, dude, I will buy the car. Maybe that's their sales technique, is they just want it to be so painful that you don't want to get a discount or you're not negotiating. It's, I'll buy the car. Stop, please, you're terrible. I'll buy the car. So part of being really good at this, there's a responsibility to make the people who want to buy from you feel comfortable in the buying process, right? You're doing them a massive service by being good at this. And that's the way I think of it. There's nothing more invigorating for me in practice, and I know Cratio's the same, than walking out of a day one, or especially a day two, and having that person not only say yes, and us accept them into our practice, but having them say, yes, I'm excited, right? Yes, I can't wait for this. Yes, this was great that I just paid you $2,000. I'm so happy about this. And that's a big difference from the relationship I used to have with selling when I was earlier in practice, which, of course, no surprise, I wasn't as good at it. My numbers showed I wasn't as good at it, and I felt terrible about it. I mean, how uncomfortable is it to go home at night and think, I did a great job today. I had 5 people start care in the practice, and I don't actually feel that good about it. Maybe I better lower my fees a little bit. Right? I've been there. You've heard all the stories. You know, $13 collections, 300 visit a week practice, $13 collections. I've been there. And those changes were because I didn't have a good relationship with what selling was. And I know Cratio specifically is going to address some of those biggest pieces. And somebody said self-esteem. So we're going to talk a lot about that. The next step is you're getting them to emotionally take action. Right? So here's a couple of things that I think are very valuable in the mindset. When you're trying to sell in this process, I don't want you to think of yourself as trying to convince somebody to buy your stuff. And I think that's one of the big pitfalls. Right? We think, oh man, I feel like I'm selling. I feel like I'm trying to convince this person. And, you know, we've been there on day two. We've been there with people in our practice. And it's not fun. It's not comfortable. And that's not what we want to create in the entire system. We want people to want to buy from us. So think more in terms of influencing people. And one of the, I guess, the mindset switches that has been beneficial for me, instead of thinking of trying to sell you my stuff, what I'm thinking is I want to paint a picture for you of your future in a way that doesn't exist right now. Right? If I can paint a picture for you in a way that doesn't exist right now that you want, then the next step is you're going to sell yourself on that, and then you're going to look for a product or a service or experience that can assist you or help you in getting it. That's where we come in. Right? We're not selling our stuff to them. We're not selling chiropractic care to them or Life by Design to them or whatever your process or system is. You're selling them on the future benefit. That is the most important piece of this. What does their life look like after they've had your service? What does their life look like after they've had your product, your experience? What could it look like, right? Imagine if, right? That's something we'll use a lot on day 2. Imagine if you're 12 months down the road or 6 months down the road and this was your experience. What would that be like? How would that affect your life? What would be better? They will bridge the gap. I mean, we've all gone through the experience. If anybody's painted a picture for you of here's what it could be like if you just did certain things, what did you do in your mind? What did your brain do? It starts to figure it out. The brain starts to calculate, right? It's like you're a ship and you're flying to the moon and you know I'm committed to getting to the moon. I know I'm right here. Oh, we got off track a little bit. Your brain will recalibrate and recalculate and look for the best path to get there. And if it can't get there on its own, it's going to look for help and it's going to look for assistance. Guess who steps in when you need assistance? That's our job. And that fits very beautifully with the chiropractic approach, doesn't it? Our job is not to fix or cure. Our job is to assist the body in moving towards a better and higher level of health and function. It's exactly what the sales process is. It's a perfect analogy. Your job is not to do the work for them and get them to believe that they should buy your product. You're not selling the product. What you're doing is selling the future effects. And then you're helping them sell themselves. And then you're making it comfortable for them to choose you as their person or your team, the experience or the product. So that's where the emotional commitment comes in, right? So they've intellectually seen what you said. No, it makes sense. I get that. You've painted this big picture for them. You've influenced them. And there's lots of ways that you'll influence. And we'll go through tons of plays over the course of the weekend in terms of your office aesthetic, the way you speak to people, your communication skills, what words you use, your lexicon. Everything matters. You've heard me say this over and over and over again. And when Mike said, being committed or coming to the center and seeing how detailed things are, that's because that's my belief system, is everything matters. If you walk into an office and I want you to comfortably go through the process and at the end of it, make a financial exchange for something that we're going to do that's going to get you the future benefit that you want, I need to make sure everything is in check. That means the office needs to look good. The branding needs to match the story. The doctor needs to look like they're healthy and they're delivering health to people. The communication skills, all the different pieces need to be put in place. So what you're going to end up with this weekend is a book full of stuff. And on the last part of it, we'll get you to pick out 3 things that you're going to take action on, and then very specifically what the first step of those actions are going to be. So this is going to be a great resource for you, but when you leave here over the course of the weekend, Monday, you're going to need to create a plan for yourself, which is really the story of Life by Design, isn't it? You need to take action. You need to get something done, and you need to get to work. It's why we've continually refined these life cons and eventually all the different things we do down to trainings. Because if I just tell you this stuff and you go home and go back to work on Monday, total waste of your time, right? You flew here, you left your families. Make sure that you get something out of this that's going to tangibly lead to something that you want to get, your future benefit. If you didn't know, I'm selling you on the future benefit right now. Does anybody feel uncomfortable with this? Or are you comfortable? Right? It's fun to get sold like this because you're now getting excited about what the future holds for you. Right? We're painting a picture for you. What could it be like if you knew all the plays? If you knew how to apply the plays in which situations? If people could feel comfortable buying from you and being excited to do that? Selling is everywhere. And I'm going to be selling you all weekend long, and you're going to love it. Every single minute of it. So let's start to apply Think by Design to selling. And this is a great pre-frame for the whole weekend. And following me, Cratio will step in, Mike will step in, and we'll start to unveil some of the content and some of the action steps can start to formulate in your mind. But again, what you believe is at the surface, it's at the foundation, it's at the underpinning of all of these things. So we need to address this. I'll let Cratio go deeper into it. What do you think? We actually surveyed this group and 1,000 other chiropractors and got tons of answers back. And this is where we started to formulate what we were going to talk about this weekend. What do you think were the beliefs by most chiropractors about selling? Let's see if you can guess the ones that are going to pop up on the screen. What's their belief about selling right now? I said, if I asked you, selling, what do you believe about selling? What do most chiropractors believe? Do they believe it's great and selling's amazing and it's a win-win situation? No. So what do they believe? It's sleazy. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Anything else?
Shouldn't have to.
Shouldn't have to. Makes them uncomfortable. Manipulative. See, we know all the words because we have all the feelings. This is what we need to get past this weekend. So we need to at least be aware of the belief systems, and it's okay if we still have these belief systems in place. Going through Think by Design, you'll quickly recognize that changing any belief system or reducing a limiting one and putting in an empowering one is not an easy thing to do. In fact, you may never be able to fully get rid of some of these. It's more of an awareness and trying to input something that is more empowering and repeating that, building it as a muscle over and over. But let's be aware of some of these things. So as you're going through the weekend, if these things pop up, I don't want you to say that, oh, well, it's not what I believe. If you believe this stuff, it's okay right now. Just recognize that if you feel uncomfortable with some of the things that are being said, it's most likely because of your belief system. It's very unlikely that the content that we're delivering is the problem. It's going to be you guys. I feel rejected. That was our number one response. I feel rejected. My greatest fear with selling is the fear of rejection. I don't know what to do, and that's a large part of why we built the skill set for this weekend, where we came up with the plays. Okay, great. Selling's awesome. I love selling. I'm all for a win-win situation. But now what do? I have somebody sitting across from me. How do I do this in a way that doesn't sound manipulative, it's not sleazy, and I get the result that I want? That's the skill set. I don't want to upset them. I mean, I really should tell them what they need to do, but I don't want to get them upset and leave the practice, because I can't afford for them to leave the practice. So I'll tell them what I think they'll do, and we'll just start there, and then we'll grow from there. And of course, we'll just plant a seed, and they'll just get it, and then they'll bring their kids and their family to be great. We all know where that goes. I don't like the pressure of selling, right? I don't like the pressure. I don't like when I'm sitting across from them, and we're in that moment, and then the awkward pause comes up when you say, hey, John, is this important enough to spend the next 12 weeks to begin to correct this core problem with your spine and nervous system? Well, you could just do 2 weeks then. Let's just do 2 weeks. That's probably easier, right? They don't like the pressure. And there is a moment in sales, in the selling process. And just, if you have a problem with the word sales for now, just in your mind, every time I say sales, just think influence, right? If you have an issue with influencing people, then just, think about that it's okay. It's a win-win situation. But you need, at some moments, especially in the close or the end of the putting the stamp on things, pressure is a tool that you can use to get people to take action. Not in a manipulative way, but if I create a space between John and I in terms of our language, and I'm willing to outweight him, is this important enough for you, John? It depends how long you want to do this, but is this important enough for you to take the time to begin to correct this core problem?
Yes.
Great. You're sure?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. You have to be willing to feel at least a little bit of pressure to move the process along. Right now, you hope when you ask somebody to marry you, it doesn't go like that. But if it does, and you need to use that strategy, go crazy, right? It can work for you.
Should we just do it as that? You want to marry me?
I think that strategy more comes into play when you're trying to get them to watch Transformers. It's got a love story in it. It's really good. What is your vision? So before I put it up, in your head, what is your vision about selling? All right, so let's say you have solved the belief system issue. You believe selling is a win-win. You believe it's about creating relationships, influence, getting yeses, and moving people towards a positive outcome in the future for themselves. What's your vision? Not about just selling, but being a salesperson or being an influencer, if that helps. When I think of my vision of being a great influencer, I think of being highly trained, like a machine. Not like a robot in the sense of I don't have any ability to change or to alter what I'm saying to people based on where they're at in the process, but I want to be trained. And it's no different than anything else. If I'm going to be great at analyzing and correcting, I want to be well trained. If I'm going to be a great communicator, I want to be trained. As much as I do like to get up and speak to people, I've already had this conversation in my head 100 times. Now, where this year is different in the content, I know the Cratio Michael definitely agree. Most often when I get up and present, I've had the conversation 1,000 times. The difference is this year, I've only had it 100 times in my head over the last few months. So our vision for this is that it comes off like we've had it in our heads 1,000 times, but that's also part of the trade-off with innovating and creating new things and new content. But highly trained, well compensated. I want to get paid, period. And I can tell you, and Mike can tell you, that is a big change for me in the last 7 years. Because before, it wasn't about getting paid well for what I do. It was about serving people, and the universe would take care of me. And maybe I didn't wait long enough, I don't know, but it didn't take care of me. It took care of a lot of other people through me, but it didn't take care of me. And now seeing in the Life by Design Center, I'm able to, and I'm sure my staff is happy about this, but I'm able to pay my staff more than I've ever paid a staff person. And Pam gets many pats on the back. She's had 4 raises over the first year and a half of even working for us because her productivity is so high and our team is so well trained and we're getting well compensated. We want to continue to reward her for being a part of that process. And that's where it starts to get fun, right? It's not, oh man, I can't really pay my staff anymore. Are they going to stay? It's, we're doing so well. Things are going so great. We're getting so well compensated. Let's continue to compensate the people who are part of this process. We're here this weekend. We get to travel. We get to do all kinds of really fun things because we're well compensated. You should all be well compensated, respected, right? I think this is something that all doctors, entrepreneurs, and people would love to feel. I love when people love the fact that they pay money in our practice. They don't have a problem with it. They respect what we do. They respect paying for it. That's a good feeling. It's a good feeling when somebody has no problem, and they say we're on an annual program. They just walk up and they're like, oh, yep, here's my $2,200. I'm good for this year. I'll see you every week. Great. How about when they're coming to you saying, I think I owe you some money. They're a month ahead of their schedule. I think I owe you some money right now. I've just brought my credit card today. Is it okay if we just do it today? Oh, I haven't really actually created your... Don't worry about it. I'll just put it on there and let me know later if that was the right amount. Right? They respect you. And you have to be really good at this to get to that point. And impactful. And that's what we want. You can't make an impact unless people are saying yes. If people continually say no in your practice, you're not making an impact. And you can't just tell them the story and expect them to say yes. It doesn't work. Now, it'll work if you have thousands of new people every month, completely unqualified, and you're spending thousands of dollars and you're screening every single weekend. Sure, you can get 20, 30, 40 new people every single month. I don't know what the hell you would do with 20, 30, 40 new people every single month, and I don't know where they're going and why you don't have a 10,000 visit a week practice, but you could just get 10 or 15 or 20 really amazing ones and just keep adding doctors and keep growing and have great people who love you and pay for your care and want to tell people about it, but you have to get good at selling. So start to feel comfortable with that word right now. You have to get good at selling. What's your purpose? I think this one, interestingly, in Think by Design, the purpose part is one of the most difficult that I found. When you go through what we call our perfect life planner, and we're mapping out our entire life and all the different areas and what we're trying to create and how we're going to do that, and I know a lot of the doctors here have gone through this process. I don't know about you, but I found the purpose to be the hardest. Right? What's my purpose? Because you invent these purpose in your mind. You think it's supposed to be because that's what it seems to sound like, that it could be really cool. That's a cool purpose, to serve the world, make the world a better place, one subluxation at a time. And it's not the purpose. But with selling, the purpose is really, really simple. And I actually think for most of us, this is going to be the purpose. You must enroll other people in your vision to be successful. That's it. That's the purpose. The purpose is to enroll people in your vision so you can carry out with all those amazing things that you've set out for yourself. If you can't enroll people in this, they are not going to be a part of it. And you're going to be on this constant wheel of looking for the next person, the next person, the next person, the next person. You can stop that if you just figure out how to get really good at this process and help people say yes, and say yes willingly, and willingly part with the hard-earned money that they gave up and tell other people that they should come and do the same. So I'm making a case for us this weekend that being good at selling is vital to your success, to your practice, and to your life. And the sooner you accept that that's the case, the sooner you buy into that process, and the sooner you commit to getting good at it and mastering it, the sooner that vision starts to look real. So I want to give some context and a layout to what a strategy could look like. So we go through Think by Design. There's 5 steps to Think by Design. There's having a belief system and clarifying your beliefs. There's a development of self-esteem. And then there's, as we talked about today, vision, purpose, and strategy. And that can be applied anywhere in your life, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, whether it's practice. So what does the strategy look like in sales in your business? So we're going to hit on a few of these. Lead generation and lead qualification. Goes without saying that, what dovetails nicely to selling is marketing. And I believe Mike will probably touch on this a little bit, so I won't go too much into it. And that was last year's training. So if you came to last year's training or you purchased the online version of it, you've gone through the Ultimate Chiropractic Marketing Blueprint. And marketing is still selling. It's just selling in advance. It's getting people ready to come. So when they sit in front of you, and let's for the definition of selling and where that happens, it could either happen one-on-one, it could happen in a group, it could happen online. So when I say in front of you, I mean you have their attention. That's the sales process. Everything leading up to that is marketing. Okay, and so they go together hand in hand. Lead generation, lead qualification, needs assessment, which would be your case review or your consultation. Part of the job there is getting them to recognize that their cup is not as full as they thought that it was. So you can paint their picture as to what the future could look like. If somebody comes to see you and they think, I just have a shoulder problem, and you can't get them to recognize that that's just one piece of probably a handful of other things that are happening, and without that shoulder problem, they're still not where they would like to be in their life, then there's no reason for them to use your product and service. They're not inspired, right? They're not emotionally invested. They're just looking for a quick fix. And the pitfall that happens oftentimes, I had a question from a client earlier this week. How do you take someone who comes in with a condition and get them to believe that at some point, taking care of their body, their spine, their nervous system, implementing Life by Design is valuable? And I said, well, that's the process we'll teach you, so don't worry about that. But I'll tell you what not to do. Don't bridge what you're doing specifically in one single line to the reason that they came into your practice. That's the death wish. I have a shoulder problem, Mrs. Jones. You have this thing called a subluxation, and that's causing your shoulder problem. We're going to correct the subluxation. That works out great when the shoulder problem goes away, but it doesn't work out so hot, does it, when the shoulder problem doesn't go away or doesn't resolve the way they thought it did. So part of the needs assessment in selling is getting them to recognize that maybe they're not where they wanted to be, and although they came in to get a TV, maybe they want a car. I didn't even know I wanted a car. Just thought I wanted a TV. Crazy. I'll take that car. 50 grand, I'm in. That's what selling is. Now, it's not manipulative. If they don't want a car, they don't want a car. But a lot of times people want things with their health that they don't even know that they want. So our job is to go through a needs analysis and start to get them to understand that. And on Sunday, tomorrow, we will literally go through our entire process A to Z and apply the different plays that we're going to learn over the course of today. So I'll show you how to actually do that. Case development. So I think a great part of the sales process that lends itself well to what we do in this type of practice model is, we're not just saying, hey, you have a shoulder problem, so I'm going to rub your shoulder down. I'm going to do some manipulation on your shoulder. We're analyzing the spine and nervous system, or we should be. And we should be geeking out about the spine and nervous system. We should be, really getting interested and invested into the clinical outcomes that happen, not with symptomatology, but with objective changes. So if I'm looking at, say, structural pictures and I see that their head is 7 inches anterior, I'm pretty stoked when 3 months later it's 5 inches anterior. Or when an EMG pattern clears, right? Or thermal patterns change. Or when spirometry goes up 20%. Or when pulse ox jumps up. Or when, resting heart rate drops down. These are really cool clinical changes. And when we have a case that we've developed based on those objective findings, and then we've made that bridge back to their needs, now what's going to happen is they're going to follow you in your process, not just because their shoulder is getting better or worse, but because they're attached to the case that you developed for them. They're attached to the clinical objective outcomes. And of course, everybody wants to feel better. Right? We're not saying that that's not a part of it, but putting this part in place gives you a platform to move them forward, whether their condition changes or not. That's the difference between second and third paradigm chiropractic, as you've heard us talk about over and over again. That's the difficulty, though, and it's not easy. That's the challenge in practice, right? Because the buyers come to us psychologically thinking this is what a chiropractor does, so you need to do this for me. So there's so many other things that have to happen along the way, and this is where knowing the plays are extremely valuable. And as we put this together, Mike was right. A lot of this stuff, I don't want to say it came naturally because we thought about it, but I didn't think about what it was called. I didn't think about what was actually happening. I didn't think about how we were psychologically applying this in a certain situation and could be applied in, say, a different situation given where the buyer was at or where the prospect was at. So case development, objection resolution. Right? Don't be worried if people are objecting to what you're presenting. That's okay. In fact, objections are very much people asking you to clarify something for them so they can just say yes. Right? Go back again to your buying process. I know for Graham and I, in one of our calls, we were talking about buying your new truck. Right? You were excited to buy the new truck, and I'm sure you had some questions about it. It wasn't that you didn't want to buy it. It was, so what do I get with this? What's the warranty have? Right? Can I get new tires on this thing? Can I get 19-inch tires? Probably not, right, Graham? Okay. So the point is, you had objections. And objections aren't, I don't want this. It's, I just need you to tell me how this works. Can you just answer this question for me? I would actually say a bigger death wish is no questions. I need to think about it. That's the death wish. I'll take this home and I'll think about it. We know it's a death wish because it's the same thing you do when you don't want to buy something. Right? You got yourself in a situation like a timeshare. And you go, oh, this sounds really good. That meal, let's get that meal. Okay. Yeah, this sounds really good. Okay, great. I'll get back to you. Right? Not, so how many times a year can I come down? Right? Can I use it for 7 days, 10 days? How much is it? Those are just objections. Don't think of them as negative. Think of them as the next steps. You have to be able to have plays to resolve objections, and don't get emotionally caught up. Oh man, they have an objection. It's a good thing. They're asking you for help. That's why you have to get good at this, so they feel comfortable accepting that, moving to the next step, and seeing you as the person that can assist them in this process. Deal closure. You could have everything else right. You could learn all these plays, but when it comes down to it, if you can't get the deal closed, it stops. So you'll have a series of yeses, but you have to get the final yes. And I'll give you a handful of different plays. There are so many different ways to close a deal. I'll give you a handful of different ones that apply in a chiropractic practice. Remember, win-win. This is not closing them in a manipulative way. It's getting them to say the final yes to what they've already told you they want. They just have an objection. You have to overcome it and then get that final agreement and do it in a way that's comfortable for them so they're happy to make that exchange with you. Now, the nice thing in a chiropractic practice, and in lots of businesses, but specifically ours, it doesn't just stop here. So we don't go through this process on day 1 and 2, and I think this is a huge point. We think that we get them in on day 1, we get them in on day 2, close the deal, we're good for 3 months or 6 months, or if you're doing 12-month programs, you know, psychologically the 12 months are tough because we go, we got them for 12 months. We're good, let's just forget about this. We'll deal with this in 12 months. In a practice, in lots of businesses, that process has to continue over and over again, right? You're selling people every single visit. You're not selling them a 12-month program. You're getting an agreement on whatever your initial stage of care is, but you are selling them every single visit. And if you don't have that mindset at the table, you're missing a massive opportunity. If you're seeing problems with retention, yes, we should look to your second buying decision. Yes, we should look at your agreement on the front end. But honestly, if you want a place to look at your table talk. All right? Mike was kind enough to compliment me on what happens when people come into the practice. If I look back and I have to, think about what's the one thing that I do well that really has a huge impact, it's being relentless with people, right? Being relentless with them all day, every day. And that's not easy at visit 50, at visit 70, or if it's a busy day and it's visit 80, 90, or 100. Anybody who's done any type of volume over 10 visits a day knows it gets tough to be focused on people 100% in that moment and not be distracted. It's so easy to say, yeah, how was the week? Look left. Good weekend? Yeah, look right. It's nice outside. Hey, how'd the Jays do yesterday? It's so easy to go down that path. And, I think golf is a nice analogy for this. And I'm not great at golf, but what I like about golf is that every swing matters, right? Every swing matters. And when I do play it, which at this point, unfortunately, is rare, my mindset is I want to see if I can be present for every single swing. My swing may not be perfect. I may not hit the ball perfectly, but I want to see if I can be present for every single swing. If you could take that when you're out on the course and then start to apply that analogy, or if you're in the weight room, present on every single rep, right? You're not talking to somebody else as you're doing chin-ups. You're not setting up for a big clean. You're having a conversation with somebody. You're present on every single rep, on every single experience. That's what you have to be at the table with people, is you have to be present. You have to be relentless. So we'll share with you some essential elements in that visit and some of the sales techniques and how to apply some of those plays. That's what we'll do this weekend. But understand this process continues over and over and over and over and over again. It never stops. Every visit, every review, every report, every workshop, Heck, we were at a community event that we created called the Good Health Walk. I'm still selling. I'm still talking to people, right? There's still new people coming in from that. There's still existing practice members who are excited about next year's Good Health Walk. Why? Because I'm selling them on the future benefit of being at next year's Good Health Walk or being a part of the community. You have to be relentless all the time. You have to get good at it so it doesn't feel like you're being relentless all the time. Here's what I want you to think about, and then we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back in, make sure you get a chance to go out, visit the vendors, talk to people, interact, grab a bite to eat. Here's what I want you to think about all weekend, because the belief systems are going to keep popping up. Oh, selling, I feel like I shouldn't have to do this. Or as you said that, I could feel myself being scared of what that might be like in my practice, or I don't think I could ever say that to somebody. That's probably going to come up a lot this weekend. I don't feel like I could say that. That sounds weird. That sounds uncomfortable. I want you to think about this. There is an opportunity cost to not selling. That's the take home. There's an opportunity cost to not being good at this. And I think about my own, and as I was preparing, I was thinking, what's the opportunity cost to me? What if, go in your mind for the sake of this experiment, what if you were 50% poorer at selling than you are currently right now? Not just in your practice, but in your life. Right? I think about it. Would I be married? Right? At least to the person that I want to be married to. Would I have children? Right? I'd be bankrupt. I wouldn't have the Life by Design Center. I wouldn't have Life by Design. Right? I wouldn't know Crashaw, Rochelle, and Mike. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be meeting all of you. You need to get real with what the potential consequences are of not getting good at this. So it's not just about, hey, I should really get good at this. I can see the future benefit. Great. But you also have to know what the consequences are. And I think about in my own practice recently, we wrote on the wall, and Francois and Zoe will attest to this, people need to face the consequences and the reality of their choices. So that's something big that we've been focusing on with our practice members. It's not just about chiropractic is amazing and this is going to help you. It's finding a way to communicate to them kindly, without sounding like a jerk, that if you make other choices, this is not going to be good for you. And the same is true in this instance. If you can't figure this out, if you can't get really good at this and eventually comfortable and start to master this process, it is going to cost you, and it's going to cost you big. So every time that comes up in your mind over the course of the weekend, just remind yourself of what that cost is that you just went through the experiment and figured out. So how do we solve this? We work on our mindset, which Crashaw and Mike are going to do next. We develop a skill set, which is going to be all afternoon. We're going to take you through a pile of plays. And we love the play analogy if you listen to the different podcasts. Big Tom Brady fan, of course, week one didn't go great, but big Tom Brady fan. I know Robert and I are on the same page here. But as a quarterback in the NFL, you need to know 1,000 different plays, but you need to know when to apply them and how to use them in different circumstances. So we like the idea of plays because it gives you that mindset and that framework. So we're going to actually walk you through plays. Every play will have a name. Every play will have an objective. So what is the outcome that you would try and accomplish with this play? It's not just about learning day ones and day twos and having a framework and then repeating those and firing off the scripts. You need to know why those are the words you're using. You need to know why, in this instance, this won't work with Jenna. I need to go to my second version of my day two because this is going to be more applicable to her. And maybe the first version is going to be better for John, and so on and so forth. So we're going to teach you those plays, and then tomorrow morning, we're going to go through A to Z. The first phone call, right through to products and workshops, all of what we call the pivot points in your practice where people could say yes or no. So I like the idea of pivot point. They could say yes or no. We're going to walk you through every one of those. I'm going to probably more quickly than we would at, say, a training camp, I'm going to go through a lot of the highlights or the essential elements of those visits, and then we're going to let you think in your mind, what plays would we run? So we're actually going to put you through the thought process. You start to think of it. And then I'll put up on the screen what plays are involved in that visit. And there's lots of them. So I'm going to ask you to think of the one or two major plays that are being used in the visit as I explain it. So you start to understand, oh, that's the assumed yes. Oh, I see how he did that right there. That makes sense. I can see how I would apply that in that instance. So when you leave here on Monday or on Sunday, when you get to work on Monday and you start to go through these action steps, every interaction you have, you're going to think very, very differently. And already, I don't know about Crashaw or Mike, but already since developing this, my brain is working this way. As I'm going through day 1s and 2s, I look back, I used the assumed yes, I used the confident. I'm already seeing the plays as we're using them, and it's already benefiting me in my practice. So I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited to go through this. As I said, it's brand new content, never been done before, never been talked about before.